dragons, serpents, and creatures of the night live under the bed. We also know the only safety that a human being can experience is the covering of a sheet. And when somebody that you think loves you has you sleep unsafely, the terror, it's indescribable. We were able to overcome it. It had nothing to do with my childhood or the 5 brothers and 1 sister that I had that also took sheets and blankets and everything that didn't belong to them. You know, actually, for the better part of a year, I slept on a small blanket on the floor. That's what we had, and that was my territory. And you know, we didn't often share beds because we didn't share anything. And the truth is, when I got married, I didn't know much about sharing because I didn't have much that I'd ever been able to share. I'd never had anything that actually even belonged to me, let alone something to share. And you don't realize the impact of having nothing on you. The impact of that is that when you do get something, you value it in a very different way than people who are used to having things. Judith was used to having things. She had a swimming pool, she had a car. Yeah, I had a bicycle that took 6 months to put together. It was a girl's bike that my father finally assembled piece by piece in the attic until I finally had a bike I could ride. And then I remember being mocked and laughed at because it was a girl's bike. At the same time, it was freedom. But freedom when you're poor and freedom when you don't have anything is different than freedom when you do. And that's a learned thing. So I'm not going to dwell on that, except that I think to say as a transition, the freedom to love has to do with having learned how to love by having been loved. Many of us grew up in worlds where we weren't loved, or the love that we were given was so compromised and so expensive that we didn't know how to love. And so then we enter into the world of hormones, and all of a sudden we think we know about love because we have all the same feelings everyone else has, but not necessarily any of the skills. The oxytocin that Judith was talking about, it lasts, they think, somewhere between 6 and 9 months, the amount of time it takes for a baby to be conceived. And so it looks like the oxytocin is really to bond the people together long enough that the guy doesn't leave, and the girl says, I still love you even though things have changed. And they have about a year, roughly, to make it work so that the baby can survive. It's really that primitive. It's really that basic. What I think is that oxytocin is a jump start. It's a jump start on a relationship. It's an opportunity to see nothing but the good in another person. The problem is if we're trained to look for what's wrong, after 6 to 9 months, we start looking for that. So if oxytocin could teach us anything, it would be that we could learn to see the good things after the chemistry changes. We could make a list of all the things that we find when we're in love and then remember them. And we also know that if we remember them, we get another dose of the same chemistry.
That's right.
That we know that when we fall in love again with all of the things that we came to value that told us this was the one becomes the one all over again. So I think an intimate relationship really is falling in love, which is a big fall because it's falling away from all the things that would keep you from it. Falling in love is a jump start on the opportunity to have an endless courtship. And the courtship really is the key, I think, to long-term intimacy. How can I love you forever but court you every day? So when I tell Judith I love her in the morning, it's unlike any morning that I've ever loved her. It's the first morning of the relationship that we're going to have. Or it's, I love you, hi, good, where's the coffee? And we've all had that kind of an I love you, yeah.
Coffee first.
Yeah, right.
Coffee first.
I could love you if the coffee were right. Often those are the conditions, you know. So the loving has to actually be a set of actions that you're willing to continually participate in, that as a result of your participation, activate the chemistry that keeps the love alive, and it's a wonderful circle. I think the reason most relationships fail somewhere between 18 months and 3 years is because between 18 months and 3 years, we've lost the list of all of the attributes. and all we have now are a list of all the faults. I don't know when you started doing that, but it really irritates me. I think it must go back to your childhood. Yeah, that's probably what it is. I don't know why I didn't notice that when we first got together. It's about time that you changed that, but I love you. None of you have ever heard that conversation before, or had that conversation before, but if you've been anywhere near that conversation, some part of you begins to shrink and disappear. Some part of you begins to say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. And that's when it all begins to fail. And what I have found as a counselor for a number of years is that most people leave the relationship somewhere between 7 months and a year before they actually go. 7 months to a year, they practice leaving. If he does that one more time, I'm out of here. He did it. Okay, I'm out of here. I'm not going to tell him, but I'm out of here, right? And you begin rehearsing the leaving rather than building. You begin rehearsing the ending because you can't tolerate any more of what it's like to be in that relationship, and you're not quite ready to leave. By the time you leave, you've left a dozen times. But the reverse is also true. When you come into a relationship, you can come into it 1,000 times from 1,000 different directions, from 1,000 points of light. You can continually illumine the relationship, or you can look for where it's been dark. And there's dark places in all relationships. There's dark places in all of our consciousness. We just have to be willing to say that's true, and I'm more than that. I'm more than the darkness. I'm also more than the light. I'm a whole being that has all of this. I think it's a critical thing. So what I want to say about romantic love is, it's like writing a poem. You write it from your heart. And then you go back and you read it, and you make some improvements. And then you submit that, and you leave it alone, and you come back and you think, there's even more I could say about this. And you make some more changes. And it's a little longer. It's a little richer. And you begin to fall in love with the idea that you can love that much, that you can love out loud, that you can love having made choices, that you can love in so many more ways than you thought. And then you leave it alone, and you come back, and you see that poem again, and it reminds you of some of the things you forgot. And it makes you want to write some more. And actually, being in love is a continuous poem that never ends. It's one you're willing to go back and edit 1,000 times for the good of the poem, for the good of the love that you want to see more of. And then what happens is it creates a kind of tidal wave, because other people see that love and they, wow, that's really great. Yeah, it actually is. I had no idea I could love so much, or you could love so much, or we could have so much about love in our lives. And then that fuels you to want to even explore it further. And then when you explore it further, there's more to be discovered. So love really is a kind of journey. It's an exploration. It's a creative venture. It's an adventure. It's a process of refining and defining and refining and defining, as opposed to the 7 to 9 month jump start that oxytocin gives you. Oxytocin will write the first poem that you'll ever want to write. But there won't be anywhere near the number of words that are required for love to live. It won't be long enough or rich enough or deep enough for you to sustain a relationship on. But it'll be powerful. It'll be dripping with desire and with passion. And that's good. But then there has to be more to it. If you're writing a love poem, which is your life, every day you need to add another line. Every day you need to go back and change the words around a little bit to see what feels better to you, what feels more real. Because love really is, at its very best, an exquisite, beautiful, elegant, creative expression. And at its very worst is I got feelings. Okay? And since I got them, and you're the one that's over there, I want to have them with you. Okay? Well, I don't know that feels a lot like love. I know, but I can't help it. And that's the first love we experienced. Now, my first love was a very important love. It was the most significant love I think I've ever experienced. She was a musketeer. She had big ears. I watched her on TV every day. She was Annette Funicello.
Of course.
I knew when she looked at me there was something more. It didn't work out. But I knew. All those feelings that come up, they're not so different than the feelings that come up when I think about Judith. It's just that I've had to write a few more lines. I've had to add some more poetry to this thing. The initial part of it, though, was, oh my God. And I can remember my second love, which was Sharon Peck. And Sharon she was amazing. I knew her first and last name, and that's about all I knew about her, but she's pretty amazing. Because she was Italian and Catholic and I wasn't, my parents forbid me from seeing her. But we had gone bowling one time, and it was almost everything. And so, because love being what it is was so powerful, I rode my bicycle back and forth in front of her house thousands of times, singing Elvis Presley's song, Love, love will never end. And I sang it, I whistled it, and I knew she knew, even though she never actually got to the window. I knew she knew, and I knew. And I would go home and I would feel a lot better because I knew about love. Yes. It's really funny when you look at love and how much practice we get at the feeling part of it, and then the opportunity to explore and develop and cultivate and have it become something more. For some people, it never actually becomes something more. I call it hit and run. They fall in love for a couple of minutes, it feels really good, and next. They're sampling, they're not experiencing. And we're here not to sample, but we're here to explore and experience, to go for something deeper and something richer, but we don't have to. I love English movies, but I never love them for the first 20 to 30 minutes. I'm thinking, is this ever going to get interesting? I can't believe how boring these people are. And after about 20 minutes, something begins to taste and feel rich. And the characters begin to develop, and I want to spend some time with them. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, this is an amazing movie. As opposed to a lot of Hollywood movies where within the first 10 minutes there's been kissing, there's been nakedness, and there's been violence. And it was all meaningful and important, and we're going to get more of it. And on the one hand, you can almost hardly wait for that. On the other hand, it's sort of superficial. It doesn't really wear well. And so I'd like to think that love is more like an English movie, that it takes some time to explore. It isn't all shiny in the beginning. It doesn't all glow. It isn't perfectly manicured, but it's something that as you explore it and move into it, you find more space for you in it and more of you in that space. And it becomes something really rather elegant. In fact, as Rumi would say, you can become totally lost in it and found. And really, I can think of nothing more wonderful than love where you can be lost and found. If you're just lost, there's a problem, and if you're just found. But that dance between the two is exquisite. Now, why else is it important? I want to take a step away from it, because this weekend when Judith was going through videos and we were looking at different things, we happened to bump into a tape that Oprah had on reincarnation. I thought, oh, there's another whole level here. We're not just in it now. We've been in it a long time. We're going to be in it for a long time. And God knows we need to practice. We need to practice all the love we can practice, because you see, it looks like we're going to get more than one opportunity to be good at this. And I'd like to come into it the next time as a master, not as a novice. I'd like to be able to approach love the next time as, what did he learn in his last life that makes him so amazing in this one? As opposed to, oh yeah, he was spent how many years in jail? We can all be in prisons of ignorance and impulse, or we can be explorers of enlightenment and awakening. We have that choice. But what I want to suggest to you is, whatever you're doing, think about the idea that you could be doing it for a very, very long time, which means it does make a difference. You make a difference. Everything in your life makes a difference. It's all significant and important. I think that changes things. There's lots of reincarnation stories that I've seen. I actually, many, many years ago, taught a certification course for hypnosis. And as a hypnotherapist who taught it, I got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of experience with it. The most mind-boggling ones were when I took a person back to what I thought was closer to the beginning of their life and accidentally went too far, only to find out they had a different one. And the most significant one was one that the person spoke a Mongolian dialect that took us 6 months at the university to track down because it was that unusual. And he actually lived during the time of Jesus and had heard about him. Imagine having that much in your consciousness that you're connected to. He was a poet. We call himself the poet of truth, a Mongolian poet. And he would go on by the hour with his poems in Mongolian, and we taped them. This is before Google, so we took it to the language department, and they explored it, and they explored it. Isn't that kind of an amazing thing to think about? So think about yourself as more than, greater than, larger than you've ever imagined. And that this small movie that you're in right now is an important one, and you're the star in it. But it's a movie that will have a sequel, that will have many sequels. And this is your chance to perform unlike any time in the past you've ever performed, because you don't have a bit part. You have the primary and most important major part. So those are some things I've been thinking about. The other thing I thought about is how you can have every experience be different for two people. This morning when I got up, I was thinking about how Judith had talked about things falling from the sky like money, abundance, and she's talked about that some time ago. We got airline tickets when we got bumped and all kinds of good, so you just get stuff dropping out of the sky, and it's really wonderful. I went to the cabinet this morning to open up to get my morning pills for health and well-being, and a large container of gluten-free, sugar-free muffins in their container fell, or actually attacked me, and fell to the floor, and they were all over the floor. So my morning experience was being attacked by gluten-free muffins. Judith's experience was breakfast falling from the sky. It's all in how you look at it. I, and with some amount of quiet resentment, picked up all the muffins, and she, with considerable joy, put some of them on a plate and began enjoying breakfast. So the question is, how do you want to look at this thing called life? It's your choice. Thank you.